What is going on, everybody? Tim from Tirfon Orbital. So I'd like to go over a rundown video slash walkthrough video for an install commission that I recently completed. This is for a Space Junk Sabers, like full custom build. So I set it up with, my typical static chassis, fully custom, greeblies, onboard Edison filaments, completely unnecessary extra stuff. So I'd just like to go over the chassis a little bit in detail, talk about the hilt, and then of course we'll do a little demo, right? So again, no stranger to Space Junk Sabers. I say it time and time again, I consider myself very fortunate to have the opportunity to put my hands on so many custom hilts. You can always tell when a hilt, in my opinion, I can always tell when a hilt comes from Nevin at Space Junk Sabers. He has his own aesthetic. So this one is an exposed crystal ScrapFlex variant. It does have a GrafFlex top. There's an exposed crystal with a custom machined brass crystal chamber module. There's some other familiar-ish parts on the hilt, but for the most part, it's a full custom job, right? So I went with a static chassis on this one because of the space constraints on the inside of the hilt and where the upper part of the hilt marries into the grip. There just wasn't a lot of room to work with a removable. Personally, I prefer having a static chassis. I feel like there's less room for error. There are less weak points, like worrying about PCBs and pins and all that. So I prefer a static chassis. But then again, you can't always do that. Sometimes you really need to do a removable. And it's nice to have a removable as well, to take the whole chassis out and replace the battery. So anyhow, let's come into Fusion first, and we'll go over the chassis, and then we'll do a demo, and we'll talk about the hilt, right? So here is the chassis that I did for this particular hilt. Again, it is a static chassis. Excuse me. So I have my battery tray here. We've got a kill switch. I did not have room to put on and off in Arbesh because I did have this concentric circle greebly work here. So toggling up turns the chassis on, or the hilt on. I've got all my greeblies along each side. So with this particular chassis, I did do another set of Edison filaments. So these two windows on each side of the hilt are where my Edison filaments go. I did end up removing this greebly and adding a real copper tube. Initially, this whole section was hollow, and this is where I had my wire management go through for that Edison filament, but I ended up realizing that it was the perfect size for a copper tube. So I put a copper tube on board the chassis, and then all my other greeblies on here, right? And that's it, right? So a static chassis, 28mm speaker down here that is from Smuggler's Outpost. I did emboss this with not only Tirfon Orbital, but Space Junk Sabers as well. And that's it. Proffie board sits here, slides up under the lip, easy access, nice and secure, nice and simple. And that's it. Completely unnecessary greeblies. I mean, at what point? I mean, I still have real estate here. So, I mean, in my opinion, I did not add enough. I feel like having ridges and stuff like this, it really takes, especially when you're rub and buffing a chassis, it just makes it look a lot more dynamic. So I try to fill every single square millimeter of a chassis with greeblies, right? So anyhow, let's come up top and take a look at this hilt, right? So here it is. Nevin is calling this a ScrapFlex with exposed crystal. Very simple, straightforward name for the hilt. There are some parts that I recognize. I think that this grip section is from a mining colony. These are mining colony parts, I believe. This pommel is recognizable to me. This bottom section, I know I have seen this before. I can't remember where. That's what I love about these hilts. A lot of found objects, a lot of found parts. Of course, we recognize this grenade section with the exposed crystal. What I really appreciate about Nevin's builds, he machines these brass crystal chambers a lot of the times by hand. Well, not by hand, but on a lathe. What I appreciate is the ability to remove this entire module so I can wire up my Neopixels beforehand, slide it back in, and then do my wires through it. Fortunately for me, Nevin is really good about thinking about the installer after the fact, so he ensures that a lot of the channels for wire management are big enough so that you know, we have a lot of space to play with. Okay, around back we've got a red button. Now this is a working red button. I did have to create a custom switch mount. I printed that in resin to hold that red tactile switch. I actually didn't even know that was on. So that's the main, right? And this switch below it, this is an aluminum an aluminum momentary switch. This is from Phil Guinness at Kelmanian Custom Sabers, right? And making our way up, here is that upper GrafTed section that I mentioned. Something that I have no idea where this black part came from. No idea. Really, really nice knurled thumb screw here, a red thumb screw. So Nevin shipped this to me with a red LED in here. I wanted to make this usable. I didn't want it to just be a lens. Okay, so I ended up wiring this red LED in line with the blade, and the PCB sits just above it for the PCB emitter, right? So that is lit. Making our way around back, just some really nice brass greebly work, some steel stuff that's been heat stained. Just a really nice hilt. Really, really nice. And of course there is a custom blade plug as well. Nevin typically includes those at request. And that's it. Okay, so let's talk about the chassis and how to use it. You unscrew your grip. So this was already on. There are those Edison filaments. Okay, so let's do a quick demo here. Spring side is your negative. You want to take the flat part of your battery, rest it in that battery tray, hit your kill switch.
I'm never happy.
So here are, again, those Edison filaments along each side. Those are in blue. I did add those copper tubes along each side as well, and I did a pass of rub and buff on this. My typical like pewter and onyx rub and buff. I really, really like that worn gunmetal look to it, right? I did add some Tamiya weathering pigments into the greebly sections as well, just to make them pop a little bit, okay? And that's it. And there's that lit crystal. So the crystal's got an upper and a lower. I'm sorry, on this particular build, just the lower section of that crystal chamber is lit. The upper section is blacked out, right? So that's it. Let's come down to the bottom. Twist on, or twist to activate, twist to deactivate around. Heavy, heavy hilt. Heavy hilt. Hefty. So let's put a blade in it. Surprised this wasn't a 7/8 inch blade. I've been getting a lot of space junk hilts that are 7/8 inch. So this is a 1 inch blade holder. Okay, so this large knurled brass thumb screw is your blade retention. Make sure that's nice and tight, and you're ready to go. Handles great, feels great. Let's see what else we got on here.
Ray Skywalker.
Really, really nice. So, like I said, bottom button is your aux. Flashes work. Lock up. Let's see what else we've got on here. So there's that lit crystal. That red LED is also lit. So this is on the most recent version, public release of Proffie. So the color wheel is accessible by holding down aux and tapping main. When you find a color you like, hit main again, and we'll lock that color in. Great hilt. One more.
Kylo Ren.
Yeah, it feels nice. Great hilt. Great hilt. Really hefty. I like hefty hilts. They make it feel like you're actually holding a weapon, right? So that's it. Nice quick rundown on a custom Space Junk Sabers install. This is actually going over to the Saber Museum. I'm very fortunate, again, to be a part of that collection and to have the opportunity to have something that I've built added into his arsenal of lightsabers. So to the client, thank you very much for picking me and trusting me with your build. To the viewers, if anyone has any questions, anything at all, please don't be a stranger. And thanks for watching, everybody. So with that being said, may the Force be with you always. Have a good one.